So apparently my parents talk about a lot of heavy stuff on their podcast. Listen at your own discretion. Like, comment, subscribe, and share or whatever. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Ryan. This is Jess. We are sober as fuck. Before we get to today's guest, do want to remind everybody, please make sure you like, subscribe, review, subscribe, comment, share. Please share the podcast. We are literally on every damn platform out there, so no excuses.
We will bug you from all angles.
Right, from everywhere. We're on every damn platform out there. Don't forget. Also, don't forget, if you're an NA beer lover like myself and you like athletic, you can go on and save 20% with my code RyanStew20, RyanStew 20.
Or even better, you can use my code, which is Jessica 20. It's not complicated at all. There's no weird spelling. There are no mishaps. Just Jessica 20.
There you go. Always a competition with you.
Because I'm a winner.
Okay. Anything else? Moving on?
Scooch in. I keep telling Ryan to scooch in.
I can't help it.
Well, it smushes us whenever we have a guest on. And so it's like, you're like this. You're like, look at me, I'm Ryan, and I'm talking, and you can only see 3/4 of my face.
Mm-hmm. I think it's weird, though, because usually when I'm sitting on the couch, I always sit on this side. So it's a little weird having, on my left side.
Speaking to the mic, Ryan. Speaking to the mic. Golly, man. Okay. I said it before we started filming, but I got to do everything around here. I'm tired. Mama's tired.
I understand.
And my back hurts from decorating the Christmas tree.
Yes. That time of the year. 'Tis the season.
Yes. Speaking of guests.
Yes.
Who do we have today?
Today we have Krista Martinez. Just a little bit about her. She embodies grit, honesty, full body transformation. Krista's story isn't a straight line. It's a comeback story with plot twist, relapses, hard lessons, and a whole lot of truth. She did first get sober in 2010 for about 5 years, and then she tried normal drinking again. She got fully sober again in 2023. She's a co-creator of Clean and Sober Lifestyle brand with her partner and her soulmate. So let's please welcome to the show, Krista Martinez.
Hi,
hey,
guys.
Krista, how are you?
Hi.
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely
Thank you for coming on the show.
Guys' dynamic.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you.
It's just called being married for a really long fucking time.
Well, I hope that I have something like that. Me and Derek are very similar. When you said, I'm a winner, that's his line. It's not a race unless I win.
That's right.
So
right. I don't want
100%.
I don't want to be the first loser.
That's
are you
right.
kidding?
Ricky Bobby over here.
Oh man, if you ain't first, you're last.
That's
right.
That's right. You know it.
Well, Krista, again, thank you so much for joining us on the show and coming on and talking about your story. Before we get into your lifestyle brand, let's hear about your relationship with alcohol, how everything changed, back in 2010 and kind of where you're at today.
Okay. So I am very normal in the sense that I didn't feel like I fit in. I always felt like I needed some kind of lubricant to make me, because that was my goal in life, right? Because high school was the most important thing growing up. And I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be, in the crowd. I wanted all the attention. And so how would I get that? I learned very quickly that in order to be popular, you had to kind of wear that drama queen crown and be just gossiping and drinking and partying and all up in the mix. And so that's what I got into. I ditched the sports because even though I was good, it wasn't getting me enough attention. And that's all I really cared about. And so I learned really quickly that I could get intoxicated and be the center of attention, do crazy things. And then I always had that excuse of, oh, sorry, my bad, I was drinking, right? And it just took off from there. I learned that I didn't have to live in my body. I didn't have to deal with the troubles of the world. I didn't have to have a good day or a bad day. I could just get drunk and it would all go away. So I suppressed a lot of feelings and trauma, and I was incredibly insecure. I had no self-respect, no self-confidence, because everything about me was being poured from the outside in. So it led me to meet narcissistic men who smothered me with gifts and attention, and they kept me drunk or high. And then all of a sudden, it would start with like yelling, and then it would be like a smack here or a smack there, and the abuse progressed. I am a domestic violence survivor. It took me 2 years to leave my first boyfriend. He was incredibly abusive. He broke my ribs like a dozen times, my collarbone. I remember the last time, the most significant time, it was 2008. I had gone to Reno to party with my boyfriend, and we got into a fight. I don't remember why we got into a fight, but I remember we were in the bathroom of our hotel room, and he was smashing my head against the mirror in the bathroom. And I must have blacked out, because the next thing I remember was waking up and my back was to the base of the toilet and he was kicking me. And his friend came in and said, "You're going to kill her. You need to stop." So we stopped and they took me home, and my uncle came and picked me up. This was Father's Day morning, right? My uncle's trying to spend time with his kids. And I'm like, dude, I need to go to a hospital. Can you come get me? He came and he picked me up, and he called my dad, and my dad had to come. I had 2 black eyes, a broken collarbone, broken ribs. I was covered in bruises. And that was my Father's Day gift to my dad in 2008. I still feel terrible about that. I don't know that I'll ever forget it. Having my dad stand at the edge of my hospital bed in tears as he's looking at me, and I'm just beat up. And it was rough. He told me that I needed to get away from him, and so I did. It took a lot of time, but I got sick. I had pancreatitis, and I remember that they thought it was because of my drinking, which, don't get me wrong, it didn't help. They came in and they asked me, like, "Do you think you're an alcoholic?" I said, "No." "Did my dad send you?" "I'm not an alcoholic." And they said, "Well, how much do you drink?" And I said, "I don't know, like a fifth a day." And they're like, "Yeah, that's not normal." And I'm like, "It's pretty normal, you know?" And what had happened was my ribs broke so many times, they severed my pancreas in half. So half of it was working and the other half was consuming itself. So they tried to put a stent in there and that didn't work. And they actually had to sever or go in and remove half of the pancreas. And so I was in surgery for I think it was like 11 hours. There was some complications they got in there, but they did it, and I've been good ever since. I do have some issues, but for the most part, it's been good. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because my drinking took me to some really, really dark places. I was hanging out with people that I should not hang out with. And looking back now, after doing some work on myself, I'm grateful that I made it out alive, because not everybody does, you know. I remember there were times when I was laying in bed and I was thinking that I was going to overdose or I was going to die. Like, I was doing a lot of drugs, and I remember my heart would beat out of my chest, and so my arms are shaking, and so I'm wrapped, like twisting my arms up to stop them from shaking, but then my legs start shaking. So then I'm twisting my legs up, right? And I'm trying this so hard to just hold myself still, because my body is like going crazy. I did way too much. And I don't know how I'm alive. I think it's because I have some guardian angels. God knew that I had a journey, something to share, you know.
It's tough. Yeah. Take a moment.
It's it definitely was not the easiest time in my life. I always wondered why I needed that validation, you know, why I couldn't just be content with myself. And the truth is I never spent time alone with myself, you know. I always wanted to be thinner or prettier or have better clothes. Like, I never wanted to do the work on the inside. You know, I would look at people who went to therapy and I'm like, God, you're just weak. You just get a bottle, you just get a bag, like you just deal with it like a grown up, you know, you just run away, like deal with that tomorrow. Who cares? And I always thought that that was weakness, you know, and so that was my thing too, is I didn't want to come into the rooms necessarily because I didn't want to get rid of my crutch. Because if I had to look at me, like, there's no way that anybody was going to like me because I didn't like me, you know? And I had worked so hard at hiding who I was from the world. I can't go and be vulnerable, you know? Like, I can't go and share my intimate life with people. And so I did get sober. It took me a minute, but in 2010, I met him. We both had 90 days. And so we're like, dude, we got this. Like, let's get married. Let's start a family. We're both in recovery. We got 3 months. We're good, right? 2 people in recovery. There's no way that this is going to get messed up. And I think we were like 4 months in. We drank, and consequences happened. And I found out I was pregnant. And so I got my sponsor, my first sponsor. And I told her, I said, look, I'm pregnant. It's not just about me anymore. I need to get this. And so we got started. I remember the first third step we did together. It was in a Starbucks, and we're sitting there and we're drinking coffee and we're reading. And she's like, we're going to do the third step prayer. And I'm like, here in front of all these people? And she's like, well, you can do it here at the table on your knees, or we can go in the bathroom and we can do it over the toilet. And I'm like, I'm not going into a Starbucks bathroom and getting on my knees. No way. She's like, okay, well, that's your only other option. And so it was humbling, because don't you know I'm the center of the universe and it's all about me all the time. So we got on our knees and we did the third step prayer. And I remember looking up and around and nobody was looking at me. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe it isn't all about me. Like, maybe I'm not the center of everyone's conversation. And I think that was the first time that I was like, wow, like the weight was lifted. Like, I didn't have to be perfect all the time, you know? And it just went from there. We did the steps. I remember my 4th step was absolutely brutal. Myself, that was my number one offender. I put myself down. I think I've put myself down on every fourth step I've ever done. And I got through it. It was hard. I think my first fifth step took like 4.5, 5 hours. But we were incredibly bonded, right? And so not only am I going through these steps, but I'm also going through hormones because I'm pregnant. I'm super emotional. I'm having good days, bad days, and I'm trying to get used to the idea that I no longer drink or use. And so it was a lot. My first year was intense, but I did it, right? And I remember I gave birth to my son and my whole world changed. Like, I had no idea what love was until I held that little boy, right? And I was like, oh my God. And it was just this huge, like, eye-opening experience. And I remember thinking, like, he's never going to see his mom drunk or loaded, right? And I felt so good. And he didn't. For the first 5 years, everything was good, you know? But it was so good that I stopped going to meetings. I stopped working with my sponsor. I stopped reaching out, and I just was dry. I was doing everything with Krista's thinking. And at the time I was like, but I've got all this recovery, so I don't think the way I used to think. I'm good. But an untreated alcoholic mind is still an alcoholic mind. And it took that relapse for me to realize that, right? And so my grandfather got diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. And it was in 2015, so I had 5 years. And I promised him, I was like, I'm going to continue to stay sober. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fight because that's how you remember me and that's how I want you to remember me. And shortly after he passed, I relapsed. And I remember the next morning, I sat in the bathtub and I cried and I just held my head and I was like, I just lost everything that I've worked for. Like, who am I if I'm not sober? Right? And it broke me. And I reached out to some friends in the rooms and I said, I'm really sorry, but I relapsed. And it took me 7 years to make it back. I had a second child and he was amazing. He was an attempt to save a marriage where my husband had gotten really abusive. And it didn't. It only made things worse. And right at the end, CPS was involved, you know? So these two little humans that I loved more than anything in the world were taken from me because I failed to protect them. My husband was incredibly abusive. And he was doing things that CPS got a hold of. He dragged me by my hair out the house through the mud and like away from the kids where he's like beating me by the truck. And I called my grandmother and she came over and she took the boys and I refused to leave. So it progressed and the cops were called. And then shortly after, CPS was called. And they took them for a year. And I kind of had this chip on my shoulder, like, don't you know I'm the victim? Like, I'm not the one that's abusive. I'm the one that's getting abused. Like, give me my kids back. And they didn't. They saw through it. I think they saw that I was broken and that I would probably go back unless they really made an impact. So I learned quickly that I needed to jump through all the hoops. And so I did. And I fought really hard. And I did get my kids back. I have full custody. And I would love to say that I was clean and sober after that, but I just wasn't ready to get rid of a crutch, I needed something because now I'm a single parent. I always had this victim mentality. And I'm really sorry. I'm like rambling.
You're
You're
not.
not.
You're not. You're
I
telling your
feel like
story. This is exactly what we want. You're not
No,
rambling. I
you're doing
promise.
great,
Please,
Krista.
please continue.
um uh so yeah, I had this victim mentality of, well, I need some kind of crutch because now I'm a single mom. I have to do everything on my own, right? And so I found opiates. And opiates had never been a problem for me until they became a problem. And I was doing like 20, 30 a day, right? And I got flagged and they cut off my prescription. So I had to find the next best thing, which was a little white powder. And I would leave my kids at like midnight. I would take them to my parents' house with some excuse of, hey, I need to drop them off. Can you get them to school? I have to go help a friend or a coworker, And I would go and get loaded. And then I would lay there spun out, feeling that guilt, that emptiness of, oh my God, you're choosing drugs and alcohol over your kids again, And I was so sick and tired of choosing other things over my kids. And it ate at me. It was brutal, but I think it was what I needed to go through. I had met a guy. At this point, I had separated from my ex-husband. I had full custody. I got my own place. And I was hanging out with this guy. And I've known him since high school. He was actually like the first person I was ever drunk or intimate with at 16. And we reconnected like 16 years later. And he had been in the rooms and I had reached out and I was like, hey, I need help. And so we started hanging out and it was just friendship. He would take me to meetings, but then of course it progressed. And he caught on that I was not being truthful. And he called me out and he said, if you don't get honest, like, we're done. I can't have you in my life because you are destroying, like, your world is going to blow up. I can't be a part of it. And took me a couple months, but I actually did a substance January 12th, 2023, which was originally my clean and sober date, January 12th, 2010. So I did a substance and I remember praying to God that if this is what is meant for me, like if I'm just meant to self-destruct, then take me now. But if I'm meant for something more, please send me something because I can't go on anymore. I cannot function like this. And the next morning I checked myself into an outpatient rehab and I've been clean and sober ever since. It was not easy. It was brutal. I had to walk away from that relationship with Derek and be okay with he might not come back. He did. We have the clothing company. Like, it worked out, but it took a lot of time. A lot of trust was broken. But I remember that I told myself, this time, if I do this, I have to do it for real. I have to do it right. And I have to get to the problem because I realized that drinking and drugging, yes, those were not helpful, but my problem was inside of me. Like, I was so broken on the inside. I needed Derek to be my higher power. I needed him to keep me sober. I needed my kids to keep me sober. Like, I needed them to validate me and tell me, oh, you're doing a good job, Mom. Like, I needed everything outside of myself in order. Like, I needed the house, the job, I needed money. If I had all those things, then I could do it. Then I could be clean and sober. But I needed the easy path, because if it was too hard, I couldn't do it, because I have all these years showing me that when times get hard, I bail. So I knew that I was going to fail if I didn't have all these things, right? They squashed that in my outpatient, because the only thing I needed, and this is where I always get emotional, the only thing I needed was a relationship with my higher power, right? Because I had relied on myself and people outside of me for so long, but they're human. And so when they let me down, I fail. When I let myself down, I fail. But what is the one thing that never fails, right? And that's my higher power. So I had to really do a third step and really turn it over to him. And it's terrifying, turning your will and your life over to something that you don't fully understand, because I was like this control freak. And I was like what they say in the big book, the director. And if everything just went according to the way I wanted it, then it would work out right. Oh, fine, So I had to really practice it. And it didn't happen in one day. It happened over time. I was like, wow, I'm actually working a really good third step, But I had to build that relationship, and I had to forgive myself. I had to do a lot of trauma work, a lot of really intense therapy. I did DBT and trauma work. I did a lot of one-on-one groups or one-on-one therapy, as well as group setting. And I really connected in my prayer and meditation. And I was telling you earlier, like, I have to pray and meditate before I do a podcast or before I share, because I know that when I'm talking through myself, I'm going to slip, right? But as long as I invite God, like something, even though I could say like, this was the worst, I didn't say all that I wanted to say. And, oh yeah, I wanted to mention that, like whatever I needed to say is going to come out as long as I invite my higher power, right? And I guess that's like my biggest gratitude today, is that even though I didn't fully understand, like I grew up religious and I grew up knowing about Jesus and God, but I had distanced myself so far away from that I didn't really have a relationship. And there was like a lot of guilt and shame, like if I can't forgive myself, how can he? And but I was able to do the work. I was able to be open. I was able to say things like I just said, even if I thought it was silly and people were like, oh, he's always going to forgive. But like I voiced it, right? And I would ask people for help. So I got through my treatment. I did that brutal work on myself. And I was able to get a year clean and sober. And it was the most intense year of my life because I did so much work on myself, right? I don't think that I'm fully healed. I'm still a work in progress, but oh my God, who I am today is freaking amazing. And I know it's because I did the work, right? I allowed myself to forgive myself. I allowed myself to no longer be a victim, to really heal. And I like built that relationship with God, right? And I allowed him to just carry me through life when I needed carrying, right? And it took a lot of humility. I allowed myself to get on my knees and pray, right? To be broken, to have a bad day, to not have it all together, to not be perfect all the time, right? I'm never going to be the perfect mom. I still yell at my kids from time to time. I still get frustrated, and I don't always clean my house. Sometimes I'm like, screw it. I take the kids. We're going to go to the arcade. We're going to go do something fun because I don't want to do chores today. I don't always go to as many meetings during the week as I would like. Sometimes I'm short with patients at work, or I'm short with a coworker. Sometimes, I allow myself to not be perfect, and I allow myself to work a 10th step because that's what it's there for, right? Because I know that I'm still human and I'm still going to struggle, but as long as I invite God into my life, no matter what, everything else works out, right? And I haven't felt the need to seek validation, outside validation, in almost 3 years. It's been the most amazing 3 years, and I'm grateful for that, because now my son is going to be 15, and later today I'm actually taking him to check into to do intake for addiction medicine, because he has trauma from when me and his dad split and from all the stuff that he's seen. And while I was busy healing, I didn't necessarily notice the signs that he was going through something. And so now I get to share that with him. And he's going to try to do addiction medicine. And I told him, I said, he's got the same views that I did. Oh, it's weakness. I can smoke weed normally. Like, this isn't my problem. I don't want to talk to somebody about my problems. Like, I just want to figure it out, right? And it's hard because I see myself in him, and I see that addict mentality of, oh, I can do it, right? And that's exactly, I was determined to muscle my way through this. And but for whatever reason, he's open enough to at least go to intake. I told him, just go and hear it out. Maybe you'll get something. Maybe you'll decide that you want to be a part of it. I said it's going to be with kids your age, because he didn't like going to meetings with me because it's all older people. He couldn't really relate, which I understand. At 15 years old, there's still a lot of life to be learned. And I told him, I said, you don't need to figure out the rest of your life in this intake. You just need to figure out today, and maybe pick up some tools that you can use later on. And so I'm grateful that I got it, because now I can help him, and that one, I'm inviting God into every aspect, because there are days where I just want to shake him, where I'm just like, don't you get it? Like, I was you. And but of course, I'm mom. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't understand what he's going through, and all the things that we say. It's definitely different being on the other side of that, but I think that's pretty much where I'm at. If you guys have any questions or anything to trigger some other.
It's a powerful share. So first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. We have guests on this podcast, and we have so many different people with so many different experiences, because we are all so different. And somebody may listen and not get one thing from one guest and something from another. And I know that your story will help so many, especially women. Not to be sexist or anything, but, a lot of women in addiction are overlooked too, because it's just that narrative of women are so emotional or women are always trying to play the victim. Our society expects us to be so strong and be able to carry so many things, you know. I mean, even Ryan, he'll say, I could never give birth, or I could never do this, or I could never have a period. But the thing is you could if you're a woman, because you don't have the option. And so when you are struggling with anything, it's just not taken as seriously, right? It's like, oh my gosh, here you go, whining again. Or like you said, becoming a parent and being like, how can you look at your kids and make bad decisions? Like, who are you? I mean, and it doesn't even have to be that bad. I always tell Ryan, you get praise for doing just normal shit. Like if you take kids to a grocery store and they're like running amok, there will be women who will help you and then be like, you're such a good dad. You have so much patience with them. Oh, I mean, I wish all dads were like you. But if I take kids to the store and they're running amok, they're like, get your kids together. Oh my
What the hell's the
God.
matter with you?
Parent them. And so when there's added things in there like trauma and mental health issues and addiction, on top of it, there's just this huge stigma. So you sharing that first and foremost will help a lot of mothers or parents in general out to know that, nothing is just black and white or one or another. There is space for many things. So you're not a bad mom. You're not a bad parent. Life is really, really, really hard, even for people who have everything. I mean, or what you perceive to be everything and don't struggle with addiction. And we are all capable of being broken at some point in time. To kind of circle back to some of the domestic violence, if you don't mind, in your therapy, was it ever mentioned, or did you ever come to the conclusion that maybe you subconsciously would seek out those relationships as a way to really like self-harm? Like, this is all that I'm worth. I don't deserve anything better than this, because you felt already so bad about yourself that you're like, yeah, if I were me, if I were on the other end, I'd beat me too. And I know that sounds like a harsh thing to say, but it's almost like a form of Stockholm syndrome, right? Like you fall in love with your abuser because you really think that that's all that you're worth. How did, were those things that you came to learn, or those things that you're still learning yourself? I know that, I mean, that can be a lifelong struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah. I remember that people would ask me, like, how can you stay with him? And I was like, well, it's not like he just beat my ass on the first date, like it was subtle. And I absolutely, well, if I didn't talk back, if I cleaned better, if I cooked better, I believed that I did deserve it. As far as seeking it out, I absolutely sought it out because I needed that validation. So if I could have a guy who would point out my flaws and tell me, but you can be better, it was that very narcissistic, like gaslighting, right? Where I'm the most beautiful person, right? But I could always be better, And I remember him telling me, like, I wouldn't have to hit you if you would just listen. If you could just act right, I wouldn't have to do this. And it breaks my heart that I have to do this again, right? And he was always super sorry and remorseful, and it'll never happen again. And I always knew that it would, but at the same time, like, I was okay with it because I believed that that was my
You
worth.
deserved it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had like I said, I never worked on myself even as a child. I never spent alone time, right? So I didn't know who I was. So when they're telling me who I am, well, it has to be true. because I don't even know who I am. So if I'm this asshole and this bitch, or I'm not a good cook, I don't know how to clean right, I don't know this, or then it had to be true, because I didn't even know what the definition of myself was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he must really love me, because when I'm spun out of my mind from doing cocaine, he makes me smoke a blunt to calm me down and to force me to eat. So that is like the definition of true love right there. He doesn't want me to get worse. And that's just how sick and convoluted my thinking was back then. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do see it as a form of self-sabotage. Plus it was easier for me to be the victim, because if I needed a way out, I could be like, well, he's abusing me, or he's this and that. But I would always go back to him because it was comfortable. It's what I knew. It was my safe spot. But when I needed to use it for my advantage, I could, go back home with my parents or go stay with a friend, because I was the abused person. So I was never
Yeah.
as bad as him. We always like to keep at least one person who's worse off than us, so we can kind of justify our drinking and using. And I think being with an abusive person kind of gave me that excuse of, well, I mean, you would drink and use too. And it's no, I would
Mm-hmm.
just leave. But you
Yeah.
don't see.
Yeah. That was going to actually be my next question was, do you think that a part of you stayed in those relationships in order to justify alcohol and drugs? And then, when you finally started working on yourself and you finally had someone come into your life who sees your worth because you now see your worth, how did that feel? Because well, let me preface, you said something that's so true. You stay for so many different reasons, but it's a big part of it is the familiarity, because even though you're getting abused, even though it hurts, you know what to expect. You know how to brace yourself for that impact, right? Like, I've been through this a million times, so I know how to handle this. And I know after he hits me or whatever, that he's going to be really nice for an extended amount of time. And so then
Right.
I can use that time to do whatever I want and milk it. So you end up manipulating the situation too. And then you become like this victim toxic person who is all, because hurt people, right? And you just end up spoiling each other. But when you got on the other side of that and you finally met somebody who saw your worth because you saw your worth, was that terrifying? Were you like, wait a minute, this is like, I'm scared. Like, I don't like, not that you want to be abused, but you're like, if you come up and hit me, I know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with like healthy love. Like, what the hell is that? Was that terrifying?
Oh, it's funny you say that, because absolutely. For one, it was, well, he's not passionate, because he's not like yelling and screaming at me. And so I didn't know. And he actually had to tell me, because like we would play fight or play wrestle. And he's like, I don't do this with women. And I'm like, well, it's totally fine. And he's like, no, but that's the thing. Like, this isn't normal. And I remember there was a time that we were intimate, and I said, well, stop, that hurts. And he stopped. And I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, you said it hurts. And I'm like, I've I've never had someone stop when I say stop.
Right.
He was like, yeah, I can't do this. That was a total mood killer. Like, we'll circle back. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like, you're not just gonna continue. Like, I'm not just my body is not just for you to use. Like, this is new. And it was a lot of games, toxic games, me trying to manipulate, and me trying to I guess gaslight, but trying to like catch him in a lie, right? Or because I was so
Mm-hmm.
used to these abusive guys. And I remember I would like say something and I would wait for his reaction. Like, are you going to hit me? You're going to hit me, huh? And so it was definitely like up until I checked into rehab. I think that was one of the other reasons why he's like, dude, we need a break, because I think he realized just how sick I really was, and the fact that I was using opiates and lying about it, it didn't help. But yeah, I didn't realize, when they say don't get into a relationship for the first year, I didn't realize just how freaking damaged I really was, and how
Yeah.
much drama could have been avoided had I really focused on myself and then introduced another person. Um, it worked out. Like I said, we took that break and I really focused on myself, and I'm grateful that he kind of stuck around, or like, came back around. But yeah, I make a living amends to him on a regular basis, because I was really sick when we first started talking. It was not the
Yeah.
What an
best.
incredible boundary for him, too, to be able to say, I care about you, but we need a break. I'm not, I need a break. And he probably was saying we need a break for him, too,
Mm-hmm.
right? For his sobriety, for his, like, I can love you all day long and I can see the good in you, but you can't do this. I can't do this to you, and I can't have this myself. And to still be there, that's really empowering. Sorry, I keep interrupting, Ryan. I know you want to say something.
No,
It's
that's
just
okay.
like,
First off, I don't have a lot to contribute to that side, but unfortunately, I just want to say thank you for your vulnerability. I will say, from your son's point of view, something I've never talked about, especially on the podcast or in rooms, is, I'm a child of my parents in very, very extremely abusive physically and emotional relationship. Just like you and I, we all recover. It just takes time. And I'm sure he will too. I think what you're doing is great and brave. And it may take him some time, but he'll understand it. Cause unfortunately, that was something that I blamed a lot of my alcohol on at first. It's what I saw. It's what I knew. That's how I knew it was a coping mechanism for me. But that was kind of like always my go-to thing. I didn't want to blame myself. I wanted to blame something else. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for you, because that's the only perspective I really have in all this. But to pivot from that with you and your boyfriend now, obviously you guys have built, a lifestyle kind of brand together,
yeah.
which I think is really cool. So if you want to kind of give us the background on that, what you guys are doing.
And how you came up with it. Like,
Yeah.
you go from these horribly abusive relationships, which, I hate to say this, if you wrote those into like a novel, it would be a metaphor. You are the abuser, right? Like,
Right.
you have no control over what other
Mm-hmm.
people do.
Yep.
So it's not letting other people off the hook. It's their fault, but like, you're abusing yourself. Ultimately, that's what you learned, inevitably with your 12-step program, and with the whole, giving yourself to a higher power, is when I have control, I just abuse myself. And that's the hardest thing too, is you have to let the other people go. It's not about what they did to you. It's about what you did to yourself. So you go from that to this relationship. And then what even made you think of the lifestyle brand? What is it? I mean, that's a huge jump. How'd that happen?
So that's it started Derek. Derek had this vision, right? And let me just shout him out. He's been sober July 30th from 2012. So he's got some
Nice.
time, right? So he's a few steps ahead of me, but he had this vision, right? That he wanted to do a lifestyle brand. And so I kind of got to jump in on that. And he started it with this idea that he was going to do just flat bill hats. Because there's like this stereotype that with flat bill hats, if you wear a flat bill, you're like a douchebag or a degenerate, right? You're like
Right.
and it's funny because I remember when Derek picked me up to go to a meeting, my mom's like, oh my gosh, you're just dating a dirtbag again. Like, seriously, like this thug, he's got his flat bill hat on. Does he have his saggy pants? Like, really? And it was just funny because Derek is like the most well put together. And since then, my mom's like, yeah, I couldn't have been more wrong. But
the 80s and 90s really did those guys dirty, okay? I hear you.
But I was like, well, it's kind of my bad because every guy up until that point had been a dirtbag, right? And so she was like, oh God. But he wanted to change that stereotype and start doing clothing. And I remember he did it with his buddy Vic. He did a female design, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't fly. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do female designs. And then as we went on, I was like, I really want to do more recovery, right? Because the always improving it's like this huge umbrella, right? You can be improving in fitness or recovery or, your eating habits or your mental health. So there's so many different avenues. And so I was like, I really want to focus on recovery. And so I'm actually wearing one of my,
I was going to say, let's see it.
the
I
We
love
Do
it.
Recover. Yeah.
I mean, not to look at your boobs or anything, but I'm trying to read the line underneath.
It said always improving apparel.
Yeah.
I love that. I had to make the joke. I'm sorry.
No, it is. Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to keep them hidden. But yeah, so we have like some fitness line. I've been really focusing on the recovery. There's one design that was my first design I ever made. And it's got this skull with Hawaiian flowers. And it says, I may fall, but I will never give up. And that's our number one seller. And I think it's because it was the first design I did. I had like almost 5 months sober at the time. But it was the first design I ever did. I was raw. I was doing this therapy work, right? And I wanted to do something that like I felt connected to. And so that's what I did. And it's been the conversation starter. I've had women who are like cancer survivors come up and they're like, I have to get this shirt. And, people who are in recovery or who have escaped domestic violence, and it's quite the conversation starter. And I've had people ask me like, why, what was the significance? And I was like, well, the skull is like the death of the old you. And then the flowers are the rebirth. And it's like, yeah, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, but you just never give up. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's like our number one seller. And I think it's because it was like, I'm so connected and I share that story and people really feel like they really connect to that. And so it just, I don't know. I think that's why it's so successful.
I think you should write a book. The whole time I'm sitting here listening to your story and your lifestyle brand and everything, I think you should write a book. I'm being dead serious. Yep. I think that telling your story and you should write a book.
Yes.
I think that it would be great.
We have all kinds of tools now. I could ask Grok, like, hey, Grok, help me write a book.
You could.
Without AI.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how I
AI
feel.
does it all.
Yeah.
Well, and just something I wanted to say earlier. My mom was a victim of sexual abuse as a child, domestic abuse once she got married, and had a lot of mental health struggles. And she was the most amazing person I've ever known in my life. And I didn't really see a lot of those coming to a head until I was a little bit older. But she taught me how to be a strong woman and how to be a warrior. And she just, it seemed like life was just determined to like beat her down for some reason. And it's not that she was an overly depressed person. It's that legitimately really, really terrible things happened to her and just kept happening to her. And I thought about this while you were talking about being a child, because I never saw my mom being abused. Physical violence was not something that was around us, because my mom was so heavily affected by it. And our dads were never around, so we kind of came after all that stuff. But I did see her struggle, and I did see her not be able to give herself what she needed. And ultimately, she passed away about 1.5 years ago from a lifetime of many, many issues. But she always seemed like the strongest person, and she always reminded me to be strong and to push myself. And so what you're doing with your son, and by putting these positive male role models, by showing him that you can always reach out for help. I have an almost 15-year-old as well. And God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I remember being 14, right? He sees it and he hears it. And it may not be till he's 25 or even 30 before it comes around. But, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but it sounds like kind of the same, like he knows.
Mm-hmm.
He knows, and he sees it and he hears it. And more importantly, and it's not good that any of this stuff happened to you, but the best silver lining of all of this is he sees his mother, who went through all of that, taking accountability, taking control, and changing the narrative. My mom was a cycle breaker, and I was born in, literally, you can ask Ryan, bumfuck nowhere in a trailer. My mom dragged us out of there. I don't know how she did it. And she used to tell me I had everything stacked against me and I did it. Now you have to do even better than I did, because that's what it's about. Every single generation has to get a little bit better, and you're allowed to fuck up, but you have to make your own mistakes, right? Like, you don't get to make the ones I make. You make your own mistakes. And no matter what he's saying or what he's doing, he sees it and he hears it. And as his brain develops, he will come to learn that he has that strength too, that no matter what he's struggling with, he can do that as well. And I just feel like, especially for parents, because we get so down on ourselves, like I felt so shitty about myself that I was like, I'm married, and I know that you don't identify as an alcoholic, so I'm referring to you in past tense, not current. But my own thoughts were, I married an alcoholic. I have a child. Oh my gosh, I did exactly what my mom taught me not to do. I feel so bad. I feel so bad. She's going to grow up and have all this trauma. But she gets to see the transformation. He gets to see the transformation. And there's something really, really beautiful and powerful about that, because I didn't see the transformation in my mom. It was, she started transforming already. And so, again, I'm not saying that it's good that you struggled, but there is something really powerful about your kids seeing you change, because we can tell our kids to do whatever, but the best thing to do is to show them, right? Like at any point in time. And so I feel like parents need to know that it's not all lost, and that you don't need to feel bad about anything you expose your kids to. Just be better today, right? One day at a time. And, maybe he's the kind of kid who he smokes weed and he's going to grow out of it. Maybe not. But what you're showing him is you have all these tools, and you have people who love you and care about you. And no matter what you're struggling with, you don't have, never alone. You don't have to do it alone. It doesn't matter what it is. You can come to me and you can talk to me and we'll figure it out. And that is huge. So I really, really, really commend you for doing that, because a lot of parents just are, I mean, we gaslight our kids almost first, you know, oh, no big deal. And we yell at them and we don't stop to go, they're going through something. Like yelling at them and screaming at them and making them feel like shit, I mean, doesn't do anything. I yell at my daughter all the time. Okay. Like, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But ultimately I come back and I'm like, you know, what's going on? And you do the same thing. And it sounds like you do the same thing. So I just really wanted to commend you and just to remind anybody listening who's a parent, it's okay. We are not perfect. And our kids hear us. They listen, they hear us. And we can say that as children of very flawed parents. And I think that it's great that you share your story and that you're open with your son about it too. Because we want to shelter our kids, but sometimes that's actually really counterproductive.
Right.
So I think that's great.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Well, before we get you out of here, I have to ask my favorite question. So you've got to give me some kind of, and I'm sure you got to go back a ways. I got to hear some kind of funny old drinking story from you. If it involves somebody peeing, you peeing yourself, makes it even better. But we got to get a good story from you.
And it could be drinking, it could even be drug use, whatever. And we ask this question to remind people that no matter what you've been through, if you can't go back and find the humor in some of it, not that your story is humorous, but just be like, oh my God, it's so fucking stupid, then you'll just drive yourself crazy.
Right. So, yeah, I have a couple really good stories. I remember, I think probably the funniest one was this guy that I had been dating. We were both like full-blown alcoholics. We got drunk, we got into a fight, of course, and so he brought me back, and he went and got my brother, who's 4 years younger than me. So I'm maybe 24, so my brother's like 20 at the time. And he goes and he's like, I can't get her out of the car. She's passed out. And he's like, dude, I can't, like, just go get her. He's like, you got to help me. I'm drunk. And she's passed out. So they go and they pick me up. And as they're carrying me up the stairs, I guess I peed. And so my brother just drops me and I slide down the stairs. And he was so pissed. So he told me the next morning, because I was still passed out. I don't remember any of it. And he tells me the next morning, he's like, you ever pee on me again, and I will not pick you up. I will leave you outside. Right? And I'm like,
oh my God,
what the fuck are you talking about?
I have to know though, like, did you pee the whole slide down the stairs too? Like, did he have to go behind you and pee, like clean a trail of pee?
No. Well, it was outdoors. So it was the porch going up to outside. Yeah. But no, I don't think so. He just said that I pissed all over him and he just dropped me and let me slide. And he was like so mad.
Oh my God.
He's like, I did go and check on you. I brought you in. But he was so mad because he's like, this bitch. Fucking just all over me.
He's like, I almost just left you outside. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, dude, I was passed out. I don't remember any of it. He's like, I know. He's like, but you can do my laundry for the week. And I'm like, okay.
That's amazing. So, yeah, oh my gosh.
Probably.
Well, I'm glad he didn't leave you outside.
That's right. That's a good one. Thank you, Krista, for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us on the podcast. Also, where can people find your apparel?
So it's Always Improving Apparel. We're in between websites right now. We're doing a lot of social media. And then you could always message me directly. I'm Reborn Resilient on Instagram, or reborn.resilient. And that was I couldn't pick a more fitting name. I just feel like that is, and like what you were saying about your mom, when you go through that and you start over and you go through that transformation, you are literally like reborn resilient. So life still happens, but every time you make it through something, it's like a little bit more resiliency, And so Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking about your mom.
Yeah, she was
Love it.
fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Krista.
thank you,
This has been
Krista,
so
so much.
powerful. And just thank you for pouring your heart out and sharing this with everyone. I know it's not easy, and we so appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Of
we'll
course.
talk to you soon. Thanks, Krista.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
And hit that notification bell to get
Boom.
notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.